I'm ChosenArchitect, and this is All the Mods 9, and today we get creative, and we craft ourselves all of the power-related creative items. Hopefully you guys are ready. You thought everything was over in All the Mods 9. It's actually not. There is still quite a bit that I actually want to try out, and I feel like this is something to sort of point out, that even though that you have completed, for example, a challenge that has been something that's in the pack, doesn't always mean that it's over. And I always find myself sort of ending right when I feel like I've reached the peak. But not today. This is something that I've always sort of struggled with, and that is finding the motivation after we have somewhat reached a point where it feels like we now have an unlimited amount of anything. Well, today I want to try and break through that. And to do that, I want to try and actually find a use and utilize all these creative items that we now have access to. Right now, I have the ability to produce about 2 stars every full use of the time in the bottle. So if I use that on the bee, we'll end up getting at least 2 stars just generated. So we've already almost generated the amount that it took to get the bee in just a short amount of time. And over here, I have also, I have another star just sitting on the pedestal. So yes, we do produce these stars passively, and they will just produce over time without even using the time in the bottle. Speaking of time, I've actually set up a way to sort of keep it daytime in the overworld. And the way that I'm currently doing that is with a ritual. So right now I have a tablet of sunrise, which is very easy to make, by the way, inside of a modular router that is set to pulse. That, whenever it reaches nighttime, due to this daylight detector that is inverted, and it has to see sky, by the way. When this starts to see a little bit of darkness, it will slowly but surely give a little bit of redstone to this, and it'll power this to 1, and then it'll go to 2, and then it'll go to 3. And this is set on a pulse repeater. And I have these set on pulse mode. So what this will do is this will, whenever it initially sees it as dark, it will pulse this once, which will send this this tablet into the brazier. And then it will pulse this one to just simply activate by right-clicking the ritual. And this has essentially automated our day and night cycle. If I go ahead and sleep here, we can actually see this happening in real time. So I just want to show you, this should receive a redstone signal. It is now activated. And if we fly up here, we can see the sky is moving so fast, and it is now day yet again. And all of that is done with just some simple redstone, courtesy of Create. Now back to our Starry Bee. Right here is our Starry Bee, just being solo, just doing its thing the way we left it last episode. And if I accelerate this to 256 times, basically using like 2 hours, this really starts to ramp up our production. And if I was to teleport quickly over here, we can see a fresh star being made just like that. Look how quick this is. So this is fantastic and all, but we still have yet to actually utilize any of these stars. And all of these things listed over here are actually some things that we can make creative-wise that we could use right now and make. Now, when it comes to these creative items, some of the easiest ones to actually obtain are going to be the ones that require power to create. And we have tons and tons of power. I have, underneath here, I have set up a chamber that is going to allow me to make them in this thing called an energizing orb, which we've definitely touched on before from the power mod. And the big thing is that we just need to get power to the energizing orb. Now, what items can we create with this? Well, we can make, for example, the energy cell. We can also make ourselves the creative energy cell from Applied Energistics, which has some really cool properties. Then we have the creative controller and a creative generator. And then we also have some other things, right? We have the creative energy cube, another creative source, and we have a creative battery from Integrated Dynamics. All of these do similar things. However, I would say the creative energy cell and the creative controller are 2 totally different things, aside from just creating power alone for a system. Now, to be able to make this, we are going to need, like I said, 2 billion FE, and that's kind of a funny number. That 2 billion, I think, is sort of meant to represent max int. However, max int can go in the negative value as well. So yes, it's a max integer number in programming. It's just kind of something that Yeah, plagues a lot of mods, or definitely has in the past. But in our case, reaching that number is no longer an issue. Most people have figured out ways around all of this. And so it's just sort of a meme at this point. Now, what do I actually want to do? Well, if we go into the power mod, we can go ahead and grab all of our rods, energizing rods here. Unfortunately, they don't stack, and I'm going to place them on our wall. And I've talked about this before and how this actually functions. Inside of this cable stack here, this cable can transfer 3.7 million FE per tick from these ultimate cables, whereas these can only support a max IO and input and output of 200,000 FE. So that leaves us at needing about 16 of these per universal cable line. Even if I was to use the cables from Power, we still run into a power cap issue. You see right here, 1 million is all that these cables can support. So it is better to use, for example, mechanism cables because they do support 3 million. So each one of these lines, I will be able to send a maximum of like 3.7 or close to it million. And that means we can get close to 15 million FE per tick going into this energizing orb from all of these. Or at least so I thought. We are still plagued, unfortunately, with a limitation of range. So it does seem like these up here are going to have to be moved to the side. And I could, inside of this small place, I could go ahead and just place them on the side here and then just sort of wrap around on all of the other sides. Or I can solve this by simply raising this up like you see here by a couple. But man, the lasers in here, that is so cool looking with all of these linking to that central point. Now, something I might want to do is turn off our current charging. So right now we are charging our inventory, but I want to turn that off. And that's because we're going to be handling some items in our inventory, and I don't necessarily want to put a charge in them when I craft them. For example, let's craft a creative controller. So if we go ahead and make a controller, I don't know if I've made one of these in a while. I don't even know if I have it on AutoCraft. I think I might have crafted it by hand. Refined storage controller. Let's go ahead and craft it by hand, right? So we'll go ahead and get these items requested up and then craft a controller. That's pretty straightforward. And then we need to mix that with all the mod star. And I don't want it charging in my inventory, which it definitely would if we had the charger enabled. But with all of these ready to go and firing now at the energizing orb, if I put this in here along with the all the mod star, this should be a valid recipe. And look, it is starting to charge. And look how fast it is actually charging. That's where I said that 2 billion is actually not a very large number. And there we go. We now have ourselves a creative controller. And yeah, we can go ahead and with that, we can actually go ahead and place that in here as our controller. And so I'll just break that. Our whole network goes down. But as soon as I put the controller back in, hopefully this will jump back up. And we'll see this is now powered and it doesn't need power anymore because it is just going to work. And that's all we have to worry about. No need for power on this. It's just, it's providing its own power, and we'll no longer have to worry about anything power related for our storage system. And I think we can even dye this. Yeah, you can even dye the creative version of it. Now, one of the easiest infinite sources of power to generate is actually going to be the one from Integrated Dynamics, I would say. This one is pretty straightforward. All we actually need are these energy batteries, which are very easy to get. It's just crystal mineral, and if you farmed any of the logs, you should have access to these very, very simply. It just need a drying basin or a mechanical version of the press, which I have shown, and it just comes from logs. So we need this and an all the mod star, and we place that in there as well. And let's grab one of our 18 now stars that are just building up. And whenever we place these in, just like so, that will then activate. And this is technically an infinite storage. It's a way of generating infinite power. And we should be able to just tap into it technically. Now, there is something that, oh goodness, it's so loud. There is something that I want to mention about creative power. And it's something that I'm kind of worried about. I don't want to oversend power and then my points not work in trashing our power. So this is a creative battery, and we do have it set. It says auto supply disabled. And I don't know if that's going to affect us in any way with this particular battery. But let's go ahead and see if we can put a plug on this. So if we do set a plug, I want to make sure that this plug is very specific. I think we can reset our plugs. So if I place this down, am I able to pick it back up? That's another thing that I need to worry about, is making sure that we can also pick these back up. Let's see, where do I want to put this? How about right here? That's fine. So it tells me it has all of this power in it. Now, if I put this plug on here, I want to make sure that we limit the amount that is actually going into this. I do not want to bypass. By default, it has a limit of 800,000. I think that's fine. Let's select our main input, and we notice it's actually not sending to here. And I think that's because to be able to actually get this to work, we need to pull the power out of it with some sort of pipe. And that's where we can actually look into another creative item that we can make with these All the Mod Star shards. And that is with an infinity pipe upgrade. And I think we can use these with an energy pipe to send this energy, for example, into this energy battery. So let's place this here, and let's see if we can move this power quickly. So by default, if I was to use a wrench, I think, like, for example, the create wrench works here. This is going to start sending power. Yeah, we see the power going up, but if I put an upgrade in here, now it's immediately filled. Oh my God. And I think the same thing will work on this. If I'm not mistaken, notice, by the way, it is now set at that limit, and I can probably take this up to like 1 million. Yeah, we start to see that it is now at 1.1 million. We can probably set this to whatever we want, 15 million. And notice it is, yeah, at this point, it is just creative power. This is able to send out that max int number that we were talking about. And yeah, with that pipe, it is just going to feed it. And if you really wanted to make a nicer looking pipe, we could probably just use, instead of an energy pipe, we can use a universal one. And I like these just because of how they look. The universal ones, in my opinion, they just look much cleaner than having that bright orange. And there we go. We just need to activate this like that. And then under the energy section, we'll put our infinity pipe upgrade. And there we go. This is just really powerful. All the puns intended. Now, in my opinion, this just doesn't look very good. And I think one of the best looking solutions is going with the creative energy cube. However, you may be mistaken when you go to craft this, because you look at the creative energy cube and then notice it's actually not powered. And if you hook this to your network, it is going to act like a trash can and void all of your power. So it does say it needs to be energized, in which it does, but to be able to craft this is actually quite easy. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we'll just get that jump started. And before we know it, we should have all of the 4 that we need to make the creative energy cube. Now, another thing to note is you probably don't want to place these on the ground because if you do, it'll set your name as you being the owner. So you probably don't want to place these down or anything like that whenever you're setting this up. But I'm going to go ahead and place all of these in, and then we just need to grab a star. Looks like we're about to make another star. There we go. And place the star in, and then that should start generating effortlessly. It just amazes me how effortless this actually is at this point. It feels like all of this hard work and we just get everything. The world. And look at that. There's another star being generated. Wouldn't you know it? So instead of using this wonky battery, we should be able to just tap directly in to a creative energy cube. And so what I'm actually going to do is, I think down here, I can have this floating. Let's go ahead and get a fence, and let's put this down here in our like little power area. I do have like a secret passage down here. So yeah, if I put this sort of in the middle of the room, I think that kind of looks cool, having this creative energy cube just out in the open like this. And it's an infinite source of power. And so let's go ahead and take that infinite source and tap in it to it just like that from the bottom. And we can actually configure. So the input right here, the input or the output's the front. The input, we just need to switch to an output, and we can close all these other sides. And now we should see that power going in here. And whatever we set this transfer limit to is how much power this is actually going to generate. And like I said, it has a really cool look to it. Look at that energy cube. That is just insane looking now. Now, the create generator is also another one that is relatively easy to craft, so long as you had create set up by this point, which, I mean, I don't even know why I'm saying that, because you definitely would have, because you would have needed this. So let's go ahead and get this placed in. This thing is actually not too big and won't utilize this max size crafter that I just set up. So it is 1, 2, 3. It goes up here, and then we have 6 plates that kind of go like this. And then we have 3 coils that go in the middle. And then last but not least, I believe there is one more ingredient, and that is the rod. And then I just give it a little bit of power, and this is going to craft, well, I say power, redstone signal. And there we go. That's probably one of the hardest items in this whole thing to get for that creative item. That we do need a flywheel, but flywheels are very, very easy to make. And yeah, we already actually have a flywheel. But yeah, it just requires some brass. So this in all the mod star, yet again, this is another creative power source. Now, do I need all of these creative power sources? Of course not. Of course not. But I just want to make them because I can. I really, really like this. So let's place this in. That actually renders so nicely in there. And then we have that. And boop. There we go. Another creative generator. And I think this one automatically exports energy as well, which is a really, really awesome thing. And perfect. We now have the creative generator from Create Crafts and Additions. Taking a look on this one, let's go ahead and see. Let's break this one and let's place this one in and let's see. Yep, this one is actually working just like the other. However, this is a nice bright pink block. If you have a pink theme, this would actually go really good with it. It's at this point where when you start to put these things together, you're like, aesthetically, what am I going with? And for me, the gray, oh, it just looks so good here. And then another easy one to actually obtain at this point is probably going to be the energy cell specifically. And that's because you probably have had this automated up to this point with all of your nitro. It just requires 4 nitro energy cells, which is quite cheap, especially for me at this point. And there we go. This is another creative energy cell. And this cell, when we get it working, I mean, it just is unlimited power when we have it down. So whatever channel, it doesn't really matter. This thing is just raw unlimited power, which is just ridiculous. Now we do have an energy cell right here. This one is the nitro energy cell, but if we were to replace it with this energy cell, it would work exactly the same. However, I don't know if it voids off power. I would assume that it would potentially void off power if you were sending into it. But yeah, it's kind of ridiculous. Honestly, this one I'm not even going to use. Now, there are still quite a few things that can actually be crafted in the setup that we've been using down below. And one of those things is actually the creative energy cell from Applied Energistics. So if you have yourself an Applied Energistics setup, this actually might be kind of useful because what you can do with it is, well, generate infinite power. And that may seem a little bit odd, but I will tell you that when you get into, for example, the spatial storage from Applied Energistics, it requires millions and maybe more than millions, I think, of FE that needs to be immediately transferred. And so having a creative cell for that, oh, is phenomenal. Now, getting into spatial storage is a whole can in its own. So yeah, that's something. But this right here is a creative solution, just like the creative controller is for refined storage. So all we have to do now is simply boop this and then place this in, and we should have creative power just like that. Another reason why this is fantastic is Applied Energistics is probably one of the most power hungry mods out there. It is kind of crazy how much power you can start to use as soon as you get into some add-on mods. For example, from the extended AE, you'll really start to see how much power gets consumed from this mod right here. Now, there are a few things that you can actually craft creative-wise that aren't actually in the quest book in relation to the creative stuff, and that is a creative portable grid. If you've never used a portable grid, it's kind of like a backpack that can hold a storage disk, and you can kind of carry it with you, which would be kind of interesting. It's like an infinite little backpack. Well, depending on how much space, but this would be constantly powered. All of these creative wireless grids basically just require no power. But at this point, if you have infinite power, then you're going to be fine. So now that we've made it through some fun creative power solutions, let's now look at some creative god tier items, and that being the creative jetpack. And this thing has an extensive crafting recipe that is going to be required. I mean, we're going to have to automate the thing to be able to get all the way up here. If we take a look at the recipe for the creative backpack, it requires us to have automated the ultimate induction cells, automated SPS casings, which we have. The reactor, nitro reactor, is needed for this. A lot of the unobtainium, thankfully we have tons of it. We also need these thrusters, which require nitro crystal blocks. Also unobtainium furnace automation. And then the creative energy cell itself requires a nitro battery with some redstone, surprisingly not compacted, and unobtainium blocks. And then we also need vibranium allthemodium alloy blocks, which I have a ton of these. But it also requires all of the prior. So all of the prior recipes for all of the prior jetpacks need to be made in order to make this one, going through all the way from wood. So yeah, it's very extensive. However, I am going to have to go through and automate all of the pieces. Now, the best way I think to do this is by simply looking up the mod irons, just like this, and going in and making sure that I have automated all of these individual components here. And once we have that, it shouldn't take too long to just simply automate the production of all the backpacks. Jetpacks, sorry. Now, after a ton of pattern crafting, I now have everything needed. And if we take a look deep dive into our crafter, I probably made more than I would ever need. Now, I did have to manually craft up to the copper jetpack for whatever reason, because it just wasn't accepting. So I'm going to toss the star in, and now we should be able to just auto craft the creative jetpack. Everything is in here that is required. Oh boy, there is a lot of stuff in here, including an ultimate induction cell. That's a lot of stuff. And we should be able to watch it actually craft. Oh, it must already be done. No way. Oh God, it is already done. And this is the creative jetpack. And this should be an insanely fun thing. It's just so cool also watching the time of day change. Look how cool it is. All right, anyways, we should be able to now equip this onto our body slot. So let's actually take off our energetic angel ring here, and let's just go straight jetpack. And I've got to reset the hotkeys because I think after I changed from using a jetpack, we ended up removing the hotkeys. Aha, I figured it out. V is to toggle the engine on. H is to initiate hover mode. And here we are. This is what it's like to have a creative jetpack that is maxed out at 100% throttle. So let's see how quickly this thing flies. Oh, actually, I'm a bit underwhelmed, actually, because I thought that it was going to be way different. Actually, it may be because we have an elytra on. I'm not sure. Okay, with the elytra unequipped, okay, that's how fast we actually fly. But because we have that elytra on our chest piece, it absolutely ruins it. But here we go. Here we go. Now we can see how powerful this is. Oh, this is actually really nice. Now, with the hover, oh my goodness, we fly. Oh, this is so quick. Okay. And of course, this is adjustable. You can slow it down and definitely make it more usable. But yeah, that is incredibly fast for traveling distances. I think your only limitation is going to be your PC and how quickly the chunks load for you, which is probably not very fast. So at this point, I'm about creatived out for the day, but we are going to dive into even more creative items. These were just some of the simpler items that did require this setup below in order to create. All of the power stuff is sort of out of the way, but there's a lot more magic related items and also create related creative items that we're going to get into next episode. So hopefully you guys are ready for that. And if you did enjoy, be sure to click that subscribe button if you haven't already, and give this video a huge thumbs up. Also, comment down below, which creative item do you think is the most useful out of all that you've seen thus far? I would love to hear from you guys in the comments. And well, it's now time to thank the creative person of today's episode, aka the supporter. And it's now time to thank them, so let's get that out of the way. And that amazing thanks is going to go out to, if I can spell, going out to Willie5974. Thank you so much for your amazing support, by the way, over on the Discord and becoming a Discord premium member and supporting in one of the best ways possible, and that is through the Discord. Thank you so very much. Thank you guys all for watching. I hope to see you in the next one. And of course, as always, thanks for watching. Bye!